different order is fine with me, but we have AB 1886, item 4, and AB 2560, item 6.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll begin with AB 2560.
Okay.
Oh. Thank you. I'll allow the witnesses to come forward as they begin the introduction of the bill. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity to present AB 2560, which requires a state density bonus law be implemented in the coastal zone of California with exemptions still to ensure that critical natural resources are not threatened. As you are all well aware of, we are in the midst of a housing crisis that renders countless Californians vulnerable to housing instability and crippling housing costs, in addition to just the cost of living in California, which is still the #1 priority for Californians. In response, the legislature has rightfully taken a number of essential steps to increase the supply of all forms of housing across the state. However, significant amount of housing legislation has passed this legislative body and the legislature and signed into law by the governor and implemented over the years has included carve-outs to effectively exempt coastal California and the coastal zone from these housing initiatives. These carve-outs have had a huge impact on the lack of housing being built in the coastal areas. The Legislative Analyst Office found that between 1980 and 2010, the average U.S. metro area grew by 22% more than the average California coastal area. Less easy to quantify are the countless units that go undeveloped because the majority of developers have completely abandoned trying to build in the coastal area due to lack of objective building standards that lead to lengthy and cost-prohibitive timelines. At its core, AB 2560 is meant to modernize our approach to housing on the coast. It is a rejection of the status quo, which says that the current process for building and developing affordable housing in our wealthy coastal areas is sufficient, according to some. It is also a recognition of the fact that the lack of objective standards for housing projects in the coastal zone that developers rely on to make their decisions to build housing, and that they rely on the rest of the state to take on the risky investment of building housing is no longer acceptable. I fully appreciate the importance of the coast as a valuable resources that I think all of us do for our state, and the need to have it protected to stymie development in areas that are not fit for development, such as wetlands near cliffs or areas that are subject to sea level rise, among others. This appreciation is why we not only added exempted areas negotiated and agreed upon last year between the author and the opposition of Senate Bill 423, one of your colleagues, but we also accepted additional exemptions. These exemptions include land that is within 100 feet of a wetland, estuary, or stream, land that is between the first public road and the sea, land that is vulnerable to 5 feet of sea level rise, land that is designated as prime agricultural land, and areas that have been designated as sensitive coastal resource areas. Additionally, state density bonus is arguably the most appropriate housing law to implement on the coast. A developer can only utilize the incentives of this law in areas previously determined by the local cities and local counties that it is fit for housing, not just for single family, but it must be for multi-family housing. And this was a designation that the Coastal Commission had to certify themselves through their local coastal plans. In other words, outside of the exemptions, this bill only applies to areas that have already been decided were fit for housing by local government. AB 2560 is only asking that we increase the density in these residential areas. I'd also like to point out that it is often lost in conversations, and you might hear some comments from some, that the lack of housing is more than a housing issue. It is also an equity and environmental matter. For the coastal economy to function, it requires that a significant amount of service workers to serve as a backbone of that economy. However, being unable to afford to live near their jobs necessitates that these workers expend resources and emit further CO2 into the air to commute to work, compounding the climate crisis that we are trying to address and that the Coastal Commission is entrusted to protect. To this point, the aforementioned LAO report also found that, quote, workers in California's coastal communities commute 10% further each day than commuters elsewhere, largely because of limited housing options. Finally, I want to emphasize that we are talking about affordable housing in this bill. That's the focus. To take advantage of the density bonus and concessions in this law, it requires that developers must deed restrict a percentage of units for very low, or moderate income individuals. In other words, the developments that would be eligible under this bill are multifamily mixed income projects, the types of projects we want to see in all of our neighborhoods. I also want to address something mentioned in the analysis that some of the opposition is saying. This bill does not exempt density bonus projects from the permitting process. Every project would still need to go get a coastal development permit and go through every other review process that they would today. AB 2560 simply says that a project that is on a parcel that is zoned for multifamily housing that is not located in the areas exempted in this bill are eligible for the bonuses and concessions afforded in state density bonus law, just like they are everywhere else in the state. I'm open to clarifying this or other items as we move this forward, but by ensuring that we increase affordable housing on the coast, by increasing density in areas determined fit for housing by local governments themselves and certified by the Coastal Commission, we can make real impact in housing crisis there. Thank you for your time, and now I'd like to introduce witnesses Will Moore from Circulate San Diego. We'll go first.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Will Moore. I'm policy counsel with Circulate San Diego, a nonprofit whose mission is to create excellent mobility choices in vibrant, healthy neighborhoods. AB 2560, the bill before you, would make density bonus law, which has proven successful in the rest of California to create deed-restricted affordable housing, effective in the coastal zone. Density bonus grants concessions, incentives, and additional units to projects that create deed-restricted affordable housing. It only applies in places that are already zoned multifamily for 5 or more units. Because of this, density bonus law is the perfect tool to create more affordable housing in our coastal areas without negatively impacting our sensitive environmental habitats. AB 2560, applying density bonus to the coastal zone, is a modest and narrowly tailored reform to address our coastal housing crisis. Further, as amended, it explicitly preserves appeal rights and buffers our sensitive coastal areas. The Coastal Commission has an important mandate to protect our coastal habitat and coastal access for all Californians. It is also responsible for reviewing many types of housing proposals near the coast. Unfortunately, over the years, the Coastal Commission has delayed or denied numerous proposals to build affordable homes. Last week, Circulate released our latest report, of which I am the primary author, A Better Coastal Commission: How reforms can help the California Coastal Commission address affordability, residential segregation, and climate change. I delivered a hard copy of that report to all of your offices this morning. In that report, we review the important mission of the Coastal Commission and demonstrate that housing is less available, less affordable, and more exclusive in areas where the Coastal Commission has jurisdiction. For example, roughly 2/3 of coastal zone residents are white, compared to just over 1/3 of the rest of the state. And the coastal zone neighborhoods are substantially more expensive than similar neighborhoods just outside the coastal zone. The report identifies a number of examples where the Coastal Commission has delayed or denied affordable housing or in the use of density bonus. Importantly, in each of these instances, the affordable housing was proposed on land already zoned for multifamily housing, and that zoning itself had already been approved by the Coastal Commission. Most notably, none of the grounds for delay and objection in these examples are based in any reasons that an ordinary person would call environmental. This means that AB 2560 is necessary to make density bonus work in the coastal zone.
Start to wrap up. There is a 2-minute limit.
And it's limited and targeted, and it will truly make the coast accessible to all incomes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Nevada Merriman. I'm Vice President of Policy and Advocacy for Mid-Penn Housing. We are a nonprofit owner-operator service provider, and in the last 50 years, we've developed over 125 communities in 10 state Senate districts. The density bonus law is a critical tool for building affordable housing. Virtually all of the 4,500 units in our pipeline and 10,000 units in our portfolio have used it. Without this tool, we would have roughly 3,500 fewer homes. In two recent examples of developing in the coastal zone, one of them is Jesse Street. It is a 50-unit, 4-story project in the city of Santa Cruz. The city asked us to use new state streamlining tools, AB2560 and AB2560. In this project, although it qualified for ministerial permit processing of 3 months, it was unable to access this because we also needed a coastal development permit. And it's a story of collaboration. Both the city staff and the Coastal Commission staff showed great professionalism. They did their best to try to make the findings and move it forward, but they simply each believed they lacked authority to make certain decisions and did not have a clear path through, so there's a lack of alignment top to bottom between these different agencies. Another project, Cypress Point, is in Moss Beach along the San Mateo County coastline. We've been tied up in legal cases there going on our 8th year of pre-development. This is a site that was identified in the housing element in the 4th cycle. As far back as 1980, it was affirmed and reaffirmed through the local coastal program as one of the very few affordable housing sites in the mid-coast. The existing plan unit development for this particular project was 148 homes, and the project as proposed today is 71. So maybe it's common sense, but 71 units is a lot less of an impact than 148. So by going through this process to go in and revise the local coastal program, it gave opportunities, additional opportunities to have legal challenges. Market rate developers also provide a range of affordability by utilizing the state density bonus law. And this is important because the lack of housing at all levels exacerbates the need for affordable housing. And the scope of the problem is so big, it's not something that we alone can take on. Thank you.
Thank you. Other folks in support, please come up to the mic and add your support.
Danny Curtin, California Conference of Carpenters, in support. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Nina Weiler Harwell, ARP California, in strong support.
Lori Smith, Housing Action Coalition, in support.
Divya Shiv, Housing California, support.
Mark Stivers with the California Housing Partnership, in support. Thank you.
Michael Lane with Spur, co-sponsor of the bill, in strong support.
Rafa Sonnenfeld with YIMBY Action, in support and on behalf of YIMBY Action's chapters and partners, including East Bay YIMBY, Mountain View YIMBY, Northern Neighbors, Peninsula for Everyone, San Francisco YIMBY, Santa Cruz YIMBY, Santa Rosa YIMBY, Slowco YIMBY, Urban Environmentalists, Grow the Richmond, Ventura County YIMBY, Streets for People, Southside Forward, How to ADU, People for Housing Orange County, Progress Noe Valley, South Bay YIMBY, and Napa Solano for Everyone. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Moira Top on behalf of just the City of San Diego. Support.
Angie Minetti in support for California Apartment Association.
Holly Ferminia de Jesus with Lighthouse Public Affairs on behalf of the Inner City Law Center, Civic Well, and the California Building Industry Association in support.
Good afternoon. Jared Moss on behalf of the City of Long Beach and the San Diego Chamber of Commerce, support.
Neha Sadru on behalf of Western Center on Law and Poverty, in support.
Good afternoon. Cassie Mancini on behalf of the California School Employees Association, in support.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Louis Bronte on behalf of the Bay Area Council, in strong support. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Anya Lawler on behalf of the California Rural Legal Assistance Foundation and the Public Interest Law Project, in support.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jordan Panana Carvajal, Legislative Advocate for California YIMBY, in strong support. Thank you so much.
Hello, Tiffany Miller, San Francisco YIMBY, in strong support.
Hello, Alyssa May, San Francisco YIMBY, support.
All right, any others in support? Seeing none, do we have a lead opposition? right, so let's see if we can just have them sit at the front table. You can sit at this front table. Come on, yeah. And you have 5 minutes between you, so not each.
We'll try not to use all of it. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Good afternoon. I'm Sean Drake, Legislative Manager for the California Coastal Commission. While the Commission certainly supports the goal of providing more dense housing in the coastal zone, it respectfully opposes AB 2560 because Coastal Act exemptions are not necessary to achieve that goal. I want to clarify from the outset that density bonus law already applies in the coastal zone. For decades, multifamily projects in the coastal zone have successfully incorporated the many incentives afforded by density bonus law while also avoiding unnecessary impacts to sensitive habitats, public coastal access, or climate adaptation efforts. This has occurred under current law, which requires the density bonus law and the Coastal Act be harmonized so that the objectives of both laws are met. This bill would instead establish that density bonus law supersedes the Coastal Act and invalidates local governments' local coastal programs. Contrary to what you've heard, this is a Coastal Act exemption because it allows developers to ignore any local coastal policy of their choosing, including erosion setbacks, sensitive habitat buffers, or public coastal access ways. This exemption also punishes local governments that have proactively updated their local coastal programs to include density bonus harmonization provisions. Cities like Santa Cruz, which met its housing production requirements across all levels of affordability last cycle, partly as a result of all the density bonus projects permitted in the city. These cities are proof that dense infill housing and coastal resource protection are not mutually exclusive. Members, there is a demonstrated better way to do this. We continue to suggest that the author amend the bill to require coastal local governments who haven't done so already to update their local coastal programs to include density bonus harmonization provisions. This would provide greater clarity for developers without a needless and damaging Coastal Act exemption. We urge you to invest in this approach. And before I close, I just want to note, since the Circulate San Diego report was mentioned, the Commission has reviewed that document since it came out several days ago. I would observe that the document relies entirely on 5 projects and omits critical facts in its description of those projects in an attempt to make a point fitting the legislative agenda presented to you. Noteworthy, too, is that 4 of those projects were approved, with the most recent one still pending. None were denied. The Commission has already provided a written rebuttal with additional detail, and we'd be happy to provide that to this committee as follow-up. We respectfully request a no vote.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and honorable committee members. My name is Tomas Valadez. I am the California Policy Associate with Azul. Azul is a Latinx-led and serving grassroots environmental justice organization with a focus specifically in working with Latinx communities to protect the ocean and coast. I'm here today speaking on behalf of the groups that submitted an opposed unless amended letter on June 4th. We respectfully oppose the bill unless amended to remove the exemption of the vast majority of density bonus projects in the coastal zone from Coastal Commission oversight. While we recognize the need for new solutions to the state's urgent housing crisis and wholeheartedly agree with the goal of building affordable housing in the coastal zone, we fundamentally disagree that the barrier to this goal is the Coastal Act. In fact, the Coastal Act is the only statute protecting the public's right to access the coast, and this bill does nothing to prevent density bonus projects from impacting or blocking public coastal access. And while it is true that housing is an aspect of providing equitable public access, in practice, density bonus law provides only a token amount of affordable housing to justify projects that contribute to gentrification of coastal communities. We recommend a more refined approach that seeks to build on experiences of local jurisdictions that have already updated and amended their LCPs to include policies that harmonize density bonus law and the Coastal Act. Such an approach could mirror amendments made earlier this legislative session to SB 951 that required that LCPs be updated to be consistent with housing element updates. Our groups hope that the committee will consider an alternative approach before approving an unprecedented exemption to the Coastal Act. Thank you.
All right, others in opposition, you can just come to the mic with your Me Too's.
Madam Chair, my name is Dan J.
Gibson with Environment California and Surfrider, with all due respect, to oppose unless amended. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Austin Gent with the Environmental Action Committee of West Marin. We oppose AB 2560 unless it's amended.
That's all you say. You're just a me too. You conveyed.
Okay, I have a group.
You can't, if you can list your other group, go ahead.
Planning and Conservation League, the Climate Center, California Coastkeeper Alliance, Our City SF, Orange County Coastkeeper, River Arbor Ecology Project, Watershed Alliance of Marin, Pavunga Wetlands Protectors, Forest Unlimited, Resource Renewal Institute, Environmental California, North Coast Rivers Alliance, SoCal 350 Climate Action, Southern California Watershed Alliance, Defenders of Wildlife, Canyon Back Alliance, Coastal Lands Action Network, San Francisco Bay Physicians for Social Responsibility, Defend Ballona Wetlands, California River Watch, Environmental Center of San Diego, CleanEarthForKids.org, California Native Plant Society, California Coastal Protection Network, Humboldt Waterkeeper, Green Foothills, Gaviota Coast Conservancy, Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society, Environmental Defense Center, Chiatri de Laguna Farm, Los Cerritos Wetlands Trust, California Cultural Resources Protection Alliance Incorporated, Smith River Alliance, Save Sonoma Coast, Isle No More SoCal Venice, California Environmental Voters, Center for Biological Diversity, Endangered Habitats League, Protect Ballona Wetlands, West Sonoma County Alliance, Surfrider, Public Trust Alliance, Friends of Harbors, Beaches and Parks, Ballona Wetlands Institute.
I think you've repeated some, so.
No.
Well, actually, I heard Ballona.
There's a lot of different Ballona, yeah. Coast Walk and Natural Resources Defense Center. Thank you.
Okay.
I just got one for you. Melissa Romero with California Environmental Voters respectfully opposed unless amended for the reasons stated. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Paul Gonzalez on behalf of the cities of Elk Grove, Fairfield, Norwalk, Palm Desert, Santa Clarita, and Thousand Oaks in respectful opposition.
Hello, Jacob Evans with Seattle, California in opposition unless amended. Thank you.
Ethan Nagler on behalf of the cities of Carlsbad and Rancho Palos Verdes in respectful opposition.
Kira Ross on behalf of the city of Solana Beach in respectful opposition. Thank you.
Natalie Brown on behalf of the Planning and Conservation League, California Native Plant Society, and Defenders of Wildlife, opposed unless amended. Thank you.
And Christy Foy on behalf of the city of Redondo Beach in opposition. Thank you.
All right, anyone else in opposition? All right, let's see if the dais has any comment. Yes, go ahead, Senator Blakespear, go ahead. No, that's right, I saw. Oh.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to comment on the importance of this bill coming from the perspective of being the mayor of a coastal city, where the city of Encinitas, where nearly every affordable unit is because of a density bonus project. And the reason for that is that it's a high land value community where if a developer is allowed to add more market rate units, then they have to deed restrict and provide affordability for the other units. And so recognizing the really important role of density bonus in creating affordability in high land cost communities, and recognizing the importance of that, and then explicitly not carving out where large percentages of people actually live, which is the coastal zone, I think is a really important policy goal. So the Coastal Act still, all of us in this room and on this committee, I'm sure, value the coast, want our public to be able to access the coast, do not want this to become a Miami-like situation where we have high-rises and private beaches and things that we would never tolerate in California and haven't for decades because of the important protections of the Coastal Act. But it's unquestionably true that projects that provide affordable housing and also just access to high opportunity communities are limited when we don't apply the housing laws that we have in the rest of the state to the coastal zone. So I'll be supporting this bill today. I think it's really important that we continue to balance these issues, but the way I read this bill, it doesn't actually get out of balance. So this is a way for us to provide more opportunities for housing in the coastal zone while also continuing to protect our sensitive coastal resources. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Senator Sayarta.
Thank you very much. So coming from an inland community, one of our frustrations is that if the coastal areas don't do their share of building of the density and the things that they're needed, and this bill wouldn't be here if it was, if this issue were being handled correctly, then the effort goes to making more in those areas where there are no jobs, and then everybody's commuting, just like they had said. So I think what this bill is a lesson in if we're not going to have solution-minded approaches to dealing with this particular issue, then legislation appears to make it happen. And that's what's happening. I have heard no one tell me how easy it was in any process that had to deal with the Coastal Commission. It was another layer of government that they had to get through, and a lot of times they couldn't even get through it. And therefore, the housing that was supposed to go in, that they were trying to get in, winds up not happening at all. And it wasn't housing that would limit beach access or anything like that. It was housing that made sense. It was housing that was sitting on vacant land, in an area where it could very well have fit in fine. But they can't get through that process. So I would say that that's something that I think the agency has to look at and understand that they have a role in why some of this legislation is coming through now. It's because we have to have more housing, and we have to have housing where people work and live or want to live. And right now there's an extreme imbalance of that. So I'll be supporting this bill today when the time comes. But right now, I have to go present a bill. Bye.
Senator Menjivar, did you have a comment? No. Okay. Assemblymember, we can't take motions yet because we haven't established quorum. Oh, but we just lost our other person. Yes. Oh, he didn't leave yet. Okay, so let's see if we can establish quorum now. Do we? 1, 2, 3, 4. Be good. All right, so let's do a roll call to establish quorum.
Senator Skinner.
I'm here.
Skinner present. Ochoa-Bogue.
Present.
Ochoa-Bogue present. Blake-Spear.
Present.
Blake-Spear present. Caballero. Cortese. Cortese present. Menjivar. Menjivar present. Badia. Ciarto. Ciarto present. Umberg Wahab.
All right, we have quorum. That's a good thing. Means we can take some motions. All right, so I appreciate this bill, and I appreciate the Coastal Act and the Coastal Commission. Being a native Californian and my for first X period of time of my life, there was no Coastal Act. I watched with horror as developers would, in effect, strip all of us from public access to the coast due to the developments, and especially, and all of them were very high-end, exclusive developments. And so here's a resource that all Californians should benefit from. And if we compare to Hawaii, many of the islands in Hawaii that did not have adequate coastal protections for years, and where, it's very tragic. However, our coastal protections, as the analysis points out and as your bill points out, need to protect the sensitive land, need to protect a variety of the coastal resources, but they weren't designed to eliminate housing. Now, I know the Coastal Commission feels that the consequences of the act and the different changes have not eliminated housing. And yes, there has been housing development, so certainly we know that since the act's been, so I don't want to get into that debate, but we do know and I want to take, for example, our testimony from Mid-Penn Housing. That is not just anecdotal. We have multiple circumstances where affordable housing developers have indicated that they don't even attempt to do a project within the coastal zone because of the length of time that it's going to take before they can work out all the, proceed. And as we know, time is money in housing. We also know that we have a greater shortage of housing in coastal areas. We have a shortage everywhere in California, but a greater shortage there. And as was pointed out by some of the folks in testifying, if we go to some of our more popular coastal areas like Mendocino area or Monterey and such, where the economy is largely service or tourist-based, they can't find workers because workers have nowhere to live. So we do have to reach a balance. Now, I do appreciate that the Coastal Act feels that they have, that with the local coastal plans and other provisions, that is the case. But when I look at this bill and I look at I know it doesn't go far enough from the point of view of the Coastal Commission, but I look at the bill and it respects the Coastal Act in terms of the protection of the sensitive areas, the nothing on the, I don't want to use the wrong words, but Assemblymember Alvarez helped me here on the public road from the coast side. Go ahead.
Within a 100-foot radius of wetlands, between the sea and the first public road paralleling the sea, or within 300 feet of the inland, in a sensitive coastal resource area,
Right. And it also
agricultural land.
And it has to reflect already the locality's LCP.
Correct. Which was approved by the
already
coastal.
been approved by the Coastal Commission, right. So I know this bill has to go to another committee, and that committee, so back to, this is the Housing Committee. So our role is to address housing and the housing shortages. And the next committee's role, of course, is the watchdog on all of our environmental protections. So I'm confident that if there's something about the environmental protections that I'm missing, that next committee will catch those. But I think when I think about our responsibility and our jurisdiction as the Housing Committee, and when we know the type of shortage of housing that we have, and it's a supply problem, and that we know additionally of that supply problem, the biggest shortage is affordable housing, and that the density bonus law is, we don't have that many tools to provide affordable housing because it needs subsidy. And the density bonus tool is the ability for the housing developer, in effect, to subsidize the affordable housing. So when I look at it in all of those constructs, it is why I have a aye recommendation on the bill. And again, there may be some aspects of the environmental protection that I've missed. I am not going to sit here and say that because our analysis is focused primarily on the housing side, though we do address, we raise, some of the questions of opposition and such, and the next committee will deal with those other concerns. But I wanted to make it clear why I have an aye support on the bill and why I think there needs to be, I suppose, when I look at the number of units of housing that are affordable in any area that is considered coastal zone under the Coastal Act, it is, we know, very few. So what we need to do things that would enable more housing that is affordable within that zone. And if the Coastal Commission, clearly it's in opposition of this one, but if it's in opposition of this, then beyond just an amendment like tell all the local governments that don't have LCPs yet to do LCP, I would like to see more proactive action by the Coastal Commission, because if what we are doing now is adequate, we would have more affordable housing within the coastal zone. So let me just state that. And Assemblymember Alvarez, you can close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you've summarized the situation correctly. Opposition says that this is an unprecedented law. It is, because the problem is unprecedented. The crisis is reached all of California, and I appreciate your committee's analysis and your reflection that from a housing perspective, all of California should participate in solving the housing problem, the housing crisis problem, and that's why we have this bill before you today. We will discuss the aspects of the environmental issues, but one takeaway I hope from this hearing people take, there was mention that we're going to block the access to the coast as a result of this bill. If the Coastal Commission was so concerned about that, they should have not approved the local coastal plans that cities submitted to them saying we think that housing should be built here. Why did they approve them? Because in fact those plans do not block from coastal access. You would think, walking away from some of the opposition, that we're going to allow construction of housing on roads or pathways that lead to the coast. That is absolutely untrue. Housing can only be built where local governments, cities, and counties have determined that housing should be built. And by the way, it has to be multifamily housing. We're not even touching single-family housing, which we know that is inaccessible to the majority of Californians in the coast. And that they thought it was okay to build housing, and the Coastal Commission said, we think it's okay to build housing there as well. This bill allows that housing to actually get built, to not get stymied, to not get delayed, and sometimes, unfortunately, to not stop projects from going forward, which all, once again, require affordable housing on site. So with that, I appreciate your recommendation and request your aye vote.
Great. All right, do we have a motion on the bill? Who said they would? Okay, Senator Menjivar has made the motion. We'll do a roll call.
Motions do pass to the Natural Resources and Water Committee. Senator Skinner.
Aye.
Skinner, aye. Ochoa Bogue.
Aye.
Ochoa Bogue, aye. Blakespear. Blakespear, aye. Caballero. Cortezi. Cortezi, aye. Menjivar. Menjivar, aye. Padilla. Ciarto, Umberg, and Wahab. It's 5-0.
Thank you. Now, Assemblymember Alvarez, you have another bill.